Taking a look at the Ottawa region today, we can see a surging jet stream of money flying out from the Parliament buildings and moving across the nation. Canadians are readying their bug nets and industrial vacuums, hoping to catch a bit of this cash as it crosses their backyards. But looking ahead in the forecast, we can see those billions making landfall at their final destination, Canada's patriotic oil and gas companies. I think we can all agree there's no better use of taxpayer money than drilling up that sweet, sweet crude. Viewers? Apologies to those of you convinced by our state-of-the-art graphics that there was a real money storm over Canada. That's just what we in the weather biz call a metaphor. But what does boring economics have to do with oil and gas, or even the weather? Well, the more money we pour into fossil fuels, the more carbon emissions we get, which is changing the weather. Pollution from burning oil and gas is heating up the planet and contributing to all these fun fires, floods, heat waves, and all those other unnatural disasters we're seeing. And we're all on the hook for the bill. Hi, I'm Hazel Thayer. Welcome to the Climate Breakdown. As we all know, the free market is the best way to run an economy. No government involvement. All we gotta do to get rich is unleash the power of the market. And hopefully the market doesn't run away, dig holes in your yard, or attack the neighbor's cat. But oil and gas in Canada has less to do with the free market and more to do with big government than you'd think. Need I remind you that you and I and everyone else in Canada are proud owners of a shiny new pipeline. The fossil fuel industry in Canada is heavily subsidized, and if your eyes just rolled involuntarily to the back of your head when you heard the word subsidized, well, you're the one who clicked on a video containing the word economy. You signed up for this, but just think about how smart you'll sound at parties. Stick with me, you can do it. Subsidies are a big reason why we haven't been able to do a green transition to a sustainable economy here in Canada and around the world. So, let's get into it. First, what is a subsidy? You can think of it as being like the opposite of a tax. And if you're like, that's not what a subsidy is, first off, congrats on the gold star for being a nerd. And second, here's a real expert describing them.
There's actually a variety of definitions for a fossil fuel subsidy. There are direct payments from governments to fossil fuel companies. There are ways that governments can make fossil fuels cheaper when people buy them at the pump, for example. There's also tax breaks that could be given. There's a lot of different fossil fuel subsidies depending on how you count it, and that can lead to a pretty big range in the estimates for how much there is annually.
That's Leah Stokes.
I'm an associate professor in climate and clean energy policy at the University of California in Santa Barbara.
So basically, free money from the government. And all of this means that now Canada has less to spend on things like education, healthcare, or, oh yeah, transitioning off fossil fuels. So how much of our money are we talking about here? Estimates vary, but in Canada, it's somewhere between $5 billion and $20 billion per year. To put that into perspective, we spend about $8 billion a year on the entire Canadian military, which, despite popular belief, is more than 5 armored moose and whatever is left of the submarine ride in the West Edmonton Mall. You might be asking, why is old Johnny Taxpayer giving billions of dollars in subsidies to the world's most profitable industry? And that is a good question. Oil and gas operations are expensive to get off the ground, but once you get them going, historically, they've been very lucrative. Which would be fine if stupid science didn't come along and prove with over 99.9% certainty that burning fossil fuels is rapidly heating up the planet in a bad way. Get out of here, science. But as any expert who's ever heard the word climate change will agree,
The fact that we continue to subsidize something that causes so much harm, I mean, it's just madness.
even if you don't give 2 flying maple leaf flags about the planet and you think these tree huggers are just freaking out over nothing, I bet you care about the economy. Ask yourself, as the energy transition chugs along and other countries around the world start to get off fossil fuels, does it really make sense for Canada to continue to subsidize fossil fuel investments that are designed to pay off over decades? Even those fossil fuel companies agree, at least in their PR statements, that we need to use less fossil fuels and more clean energy. At a time when EVs are rolling out and heat pumps are being installed all over the world, this whole thing has a real 1997 my whole retirement fund is Beanie Babies vibe to it. You might say, but these subsidies make energy cheaper. That's partly true, but cheaper energy disproportionately benefits rich people, big polluting companies, and Drake when he's flying his private jet from Hamilton to Toronto. Plus, if you do the math, many fossil fuel plants, like coal, are actually more expensive to keep running than it is to switch to increasingly cheap renewables. Often, renewables are a cheaper option right now. And who doesn't like saving money and the planet at the same time? Show of hands? Okay, just oil executives. But what about the jobs in the oil and gas industry? So, for the record, fossil fuel companies are automating a lot of their operations, meaning they're laying off more workers than they're hiring. Meanwhile, polls suggest that most workers don't care about working in oil and gas specifically, they just want a good job. And for less than what we're paying in subsidies in 1 year, this oil and gas workers organization estimates that we could rapidly upskill every single worker in the fossil fuel industry in Canada so they can go work in the green economy, which is a heck of a lot better than waiting for them to all get laid off as soon as ChatGPT learns how to frack. In short, these taxpayer giveaways to fossil fuel companies are bad for the planet, and experts argue that they're bad for the economy. And the Canadian government agrees. That's why they've released a framework to eliminate inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. So, I guess we're done then? Can we wrap early? Ah, psych! In 2021, the G20 nations, that's all these ones, agreed to eliminate inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. And then, in 2022, fossil fuel subsidies doubled to $1 trillion. Success! But hang on, inefficient?
What does inefficient even mean? Well, this is an economic term that means basically it's not that useful to subsidize this thing. Well, who decides what's a useful subsidy and what's a not useful subsidy?
Who decides? Well, the Canadian government. And recently they've defined an inefficient subsidy as any public money that disproportionately benefits fossil fuel companies. Some critics argue that this leaves a lot of loopholes to allow the government to continue to support fossil fuels. And others, like Leah, say that, well,
quite frankly, all fossil fuel subsidies are inefficient because what we're doing is making it cheaper to destroy the planet. We're increasing heat waves. We're increasing the likelihood that we're going to have these mega fires that we've seen all across Canada this summer. Disentangling the oil industry from the Canadian government, regardless of who's in power, has proven really difficult. And it's long past time for us to stop giving handouts to the oil industry in Canada.
Phasing out inefficient subsidies is a good start, but, well, we've still got a long way to go in the green transition. We already said that many renewables are the cheapest option, but because these technologies are always improving, early investment now will drive costs down even further in the future, saving everyone more money in the long run. But of course, that all depends on where our government decides to put our money right now.
We need to see the government build on the kind of pilot programs that they've been doing in Atlantic Canada in particular to help people get off of oil and propane and move towards heat pumps. And I'm telling you, people can save thousands of dollars a year. These are win-win solutions.
Win-win indeed. Congratulations, you made it to the end of a video about environmental economics. Go you! And specifically fossil fuel subsidies, the thing we need to get rid of if we want to keep the planet to a livable temperature without putting all of Canada under a giant plastic temperature-controlled dome. But that's Plan B. And if any investors are watching, or you work in Parliament, or you're on Dragon's Den or something.
Thanks for watching the Climate Breakdown. We know it's probably a little bit different than what you normally see on the Weather Network's YouTube channel, so if you like this, let us know in the comments and smash that subscribe button. We also want to remind you to check out the podcast Matter of Degrees, where Dr. Leah Stokes and Dr. Catherine Wilkinson share powerful stories about the causes of the climate crisis. You can head to degreespod.com to see more about that. The Climate Breakdown is a production of The Goose in partnership with the Weather Network. I'm Hazel Thayer. You can follow me at HazelIsOnline. See you next time.